Here's another one. We've had homeworks on this in the past. Problem set 2s in the past have been about this. I don't think we had this one this year. Choice of vehicles. Vehicles to drive on the highway around the city. And the cost in terms of what you have to give up of other goods, put it in dollars if you want, of driving a mile depends on the type of vehicle you have. And some vehicles require a lot of gas and other variable costs. So those type of vehicles we might draw like this with a steep slope. You can think of, well, maybe I'll get a vehicle that doesn't use quite as much gas, and I have to give up something else. And that, to the extent that's a fixed cost, we would draw it that way. There's a whole range of vehicles out there. Maybe I could go to an extreme where I get an electric vehicle or something where the cost per mile might be quite low, but I have to do an installation at my house and at my office to have a charger for it. That would be an example of fixed cost to get a lower price. So you can see the pattern here. Like I did with the opioids, we say, well, each vehicle has its own constraint, and we take the envelope of those. And you might have, like in all these pictures, you might have a choice that's strictly dominated by the others. Then we would ignore that choice because it doesn't appear in the envelope. But the envelope will be all the potentially relevant choices. And again, we're going to approximate that with a curve. With vehicles, it's not such a stretch of the imagination because you have dozens and dozens of vehicle choices out there. And then I've drawn, we're getting close now, we can look at choices. I've drawn an indifference curve here in blue. And then we can begin to think, okay, now we know what the choices are. What are going to be the preferred choices for people? Okay, here's your problem set 2. The goods being future consumption and current consumption. This one was a little different. I mentioned on the second slide. This one's going to be a little different. So far, these examples, we started over here by finding the point 0, y, where you spend everything on the other goods, and then drawing away from there. Your problem set 2 wasn't quite like that. We had a different starting point. You had some endowment where you wouldn't borrow or save for retirement. You just consume your income. Your income when you're young is up there. Your income when you're older is here. And you could just consume that point. But then the question was how to move away from that. So here's what I showed you so far with the opioids and the miles driven. Our first stage, if you will, is H plus Q times P. This one's going to be a little bit different. We're going to change the Q to a Q minus Y2. So that's just the algebraic version of saying instead of starting on the vertical axis with our drawing, we're going to start at the green square. Okay, a small difference, but I don't want to gloss over any difference. And then we draw from there. I don't know if that's how you tackled problem set 2, but that's one way you could have tackled that. Maybe in problem set 2 you didn't have a bunch of choices. Maybe there were just 1 or 2. So you had a steep one and a flat one. And here today we're going to do the continuum of choices. And again, we can say, okay, if the spot we won't know the spot we want until we put on the indifference curve, but if the spot we want is point A, what can we see from there? Well, we can see what price you're getting, interest rate, and this is a current and future consumption example, so you might call that an interest rate. The slope is an interest rate, and we can see, well, how much did you spend to get that higher interest rate to make your future consumption cheaper? Okay, here's the